Hello, come along with me and let's talk about trauma. Everyone's favorite topic, not at all. But trauma is something that is here on this earth and in our lives in both large and small ways. And I think it's important for us to discuss these things. This week has been quite a week for me. Um, so I'll just start with sort of one of the things that's really on my mind. I have a neighbor who likes to take my dog for walks, and recently they went for a walk, and there was an incident. Another dog got off of its chain, and it was not a well-trained dog. It was still pretty young, and it came after my dog and endeavored to attack my dog, but it did not get an opportunity to latch on or to bite her. And so, fortunately, she has not been physically harmed. However, she is displaying symptoms of anxiety and hypervigilance, avoidance behaviors. She's having difficulty doing regular everyday tasks like going for walks, going up and down the stairs. She is crying out as if she's in pain, without having any kind of physical pain triggers or experiences. And so I've spent several hours now looking at how to address PTSD in dogs. And no real surprise here, it's very similar to addressing PTSD in humans. And so I've just been thinking about this a lot. I feel like there's just so much going on, and I realize as I'm taking care of her and researching ways to take care of her and just contemplating it, and some of that is also talks about how sensitive dogs are. And when one of the things you learn as a dog owner is that when you have a dog, that they're sensitive to your moods. And especially if you ever work with like a rescue or any kind of dog that has anxiety, generally speaking, one of the things that you learn right away is that you have to be calm, because they pick up on your energy. And so if you're not calm, they're not going to be calm. So, and she is a dog that isn't, I'm noticing my filler words. She is a dog that had a difficult beginning in this world. She wasn't abused that I'm aware of, but she had an incident of being at home alone for 10 days unexpectedly. I'm pretty sure probably some things happened while she was at home alone, such as things getting knocked over, maybe falling on her, that sort of thing, just based on some of her behaviors. And so she's just had a lot of anxiety, and there are other factors involved, and just the way that she was raised. The person who was raising her was very ill, and so she didn't get some of those first essential things when she was a puppy, that she needed, like socialization or walks or proper discipline, basic discipline things that you need to learn as a dog. So she missed out on that. And so I've been playing catch up with her. She also was raised as a yard dog in a very, very small town. And I brought her to the big city in apartment living, and we have to take lots of walks. And so it's been a steep learning curve for her, but she is incredibly adaptive and intelligent and loves to please her mommy and be obedient. And so it's been a journey. We've been learning a lot for the last, I don't know how many years now, maybe 5 years, something like that. And it's been fantastic. And she is like a completely different dog than when I first got her, despite even the pandemic and all of that and some pretty big changes in her life. Nevertheless, she still has a tendency towards some anxiety. So I'm sensitive to that. I know that that's the case, and I try to be mindful so that when I do some of those things that cause her anxiety, I try and help her with that. So for example, she gets anxious when I clean. So I try and put her in one part of the house while I clean the other part of the house. So she doesn't have to worry that anything's going to happen to her. That's just one example. And so she had this experience, and now all of her anxieties have gone up exponentially. And she's been displaying behaviors I've never seen before. Less like she's always tended to be kind of a reactive dog, sort of aggressive reactive dog. She's never hurt anybody or anything like that, but she's all bark and no bite. And that got knocked right out of her by this experience. She's become very timid and nervous about things, and lost some of her zest and enthusiasm for life. And we've been working on it, and I'm seeing some small improvements. So I have faith that she will improve. And I just think it's really interesting to work with my dog and notice how she is, and ponder how we are with humans, and how we are with non-humans, and how we treat them differently. And sometimes people treat animals better, and sometimes people treat humans better, depending on what kind of person you are. So, but I'm not unfamiliar with trauma. It's actually something that I have a lot of personal experience on the receiving end of, and in multiple ways, and also something that I have studied for a lot of years now, and try to help other people to move through and work through. So it's a topic that is deeply interesting to me, the way that trauma gets lodged in the body, the way that trauma repeats itself, both in the body, like as a repetitive pattern, and also in families, a different kind of repetitive pattern. So in the body, a repetitive pattern of reoccurring accidents or klutziness, things like that. Whereas in families, what we see is repeating cycles of abuse. And how do we change those patterns, both in our bodies and in our families? How do we break off the strongholds of trauma, how we break off the stronghold of abuse. And where do those things derive from? I spend a lot of time thinking about these things because I consider myself a pattern breaker, and it's intriguing to me to consider what it takes to be able to break those patterns down or to break those strongholds down, particularly when they are several generations deep. They're entrenched so deeply. And when you start to examine these things, one thing you might notice is how the previous generations also did what they could to break off the pattern. Even if they weren't quite successful, they usually, typically, with the exception of truly malevolent people, which do exist, try to do something to break that pattern down. Anyone who truly cares and loves their offspring or loves other people is going to try and make a positive change. And so there are ways that we build upon those positive changes, and there are ways also that we build upon the repetitive patterns. So we have an opportunity in every moment to either repeat a pattern of trauma or abuse, or to shift it, to change it, to make a different choice. And that's really what it comes down to, is making a different choice. Choosing not to believe the lies in the mind, and to instead have faith that what's true about you and what's true about life in general is not trauma itself. It's not that trauma is our lot in life. And for me, at this point in my life, it really has come down to being able to think about it in terms of how Jesus intends for us to live our lives versus how the devil would like to usurp our lives. There are a lot of ways to think about this and to talk about this. For me, this has become the most useful way to talk about it, that God intended for us to have a good life, intended for us to have a purposeful, joyful life, to be filled with peacefulness and love for one another, and to be prospered in all the areas of our lives. And how, because of how things have gone, the devil, the enemy of our lives, is out there, speaking into us these lies. And every time we hear those lies, and we either repeat them to ourselves, or we repeat them perhaps to our children or to our spouses, because we believe them and we don't understand that there is a spiritual war that we live and exist in and have been raised in for millennia. When we forget that, which we as a fragmented people have, generally speaking, forgotten, that. We've forgotten who we are, and we have forgotten why we're here, and we have forgotten that we are in the midst of a war, unlike any war we have ever known. It's not fought on a physical battlefield with nuclear warfare. It's not fought with physical terrorism. It is all fought in the mind and in the heart of our own selves. And we must choose to believe that love is our destiny, that love is why we are here, that love is what created us, and we were formed in the image and likeness of love. And love is what heals. It heals. There's no damage that love cannot heal. There's no trauma that love cannot deliver us from. And I'm not talking about carnal love. I'm not talking about pop culture love or Harlequin romance love. I'm not talking about husband and wife love. I'm talking about true love, selfless, unconditional love, the kind of love that took on flesh just over 2,000 years ago and lived a life unlike any other life. There have been good teachers have come to this earth. That's true. People who have lived impressive lives, people who have left an impressive legacy. But I'm talking about a life unlike any other life ever lived. A life that no man or woman could ever live. And we have been given an opportunity for many thousands of years prior. But this is the thing. When it seems that there is just no possible way, there's no possible way to get out of a situation, there's no possible way to heal or to be whole or to get unstuck, when it seems the most dire and we lose all heart, we can see no other possible way through our situation. And we have no means of controlling anything anymore. No way, nothing left. No coping mechanisms work any longer. This is what happens when you live with trauma long enough. Your coping mechanisms become maladaptive. They're more destructive than they are protective. Something that might have worked for you at one point in time no longer works for you. And now it's destroying you and the people around you. And then there you are, repeating the pattern. Doing the very thing you swore you would never do. This is biblical. it's then that God makes a way. God makes a way. And that's what he did. He's done it many times. But the greatest of all those times is when he took on flesh. And he came here and he lived the life that we could not live. And he was persecuted for it. He was called every name in the book. And then some. And all of the trauma and all of the persecutions that we have suffered in our own lives, as awful as they may have been. And for some of us, it might not seem so bad. And for others, people cannot even imagine the kind of trauma that some of us have had. And some of us right now are going through the worst of those traumas. People no one's ever heard of. People don't even believe some of these things are real that are happening in the world. And yet all of it, our Father took on. He took it all. He took it all into his sacred body. Every curse, every stronghold, every awful name, every horrible abuse, every sin, every way in which humanity has fallen short and fallen down and missed the mark and fallen away and turned away. He took it all on. And he transmuted it. He transmuted all of it. He took all of that rot, all of the stench, and he made it perfect, like compost. He turned it into a rich and loamy soil in which the seeds of our new selves could be nurtured. And that is the opportunity that he has given us. An opportunity to be new, to be new creations. And every time we choose not to believe the lie, not to believe the lie that it's dangerous to walk down the stairs, it's dangerous to go outside and to take a walk, it's dangerous to turn your back to somebody, it's dangerous to be vulnerable. Every time we choose instead to trust, it's all going to be okay. My feet know what to do. I've gone up and down these stairs so many times before. I can do it again. There's someone here who loves me, and I can rely on them. I can rely on the one who loves me. I'm going to be okay. I can smile And every time we make that choice, this is the amazing thing about how we were created. Every time we make that choice, not just to turn away from the lies, but to embrace what is real, to embrace the true, not the anxiety, not the things that we're worried about, but to embrace the truth, which is that there is one who loves us. There is one who nurtures us. That we are okay. Right now, in this moment, we are okay. And when we choose to embrace that, and to even have gratitude for that, in that moment, our biochemistry changes. Our neurochemistry changes. We start to grow new neural pathways in our brain. And we start to etch out a new way of living and break free of those old patterns, those maladaptive patterns of living that we've been stuck in. And yes, it's hard to do that. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's a simple thing to slow down and to take deep breaths and take one step at a time. But it's not easy to do that, and sometimes we need someone to gently help us, to put their hand on us, to breathe slowly for us, to walk slowly alongside us, and to be calm so that our nervous system will co-regulate with their nervous system, so that their neurosynapses will cause ours to fire off at a similar rate. And when that happens, we transmute that old energy. We are no longer captive to the trauma of our past, no matter if it's decades ago or minutes ago. We are no longer captive to the lies that want to just incessantly repeat themselves in our brains, in our minds. Instead, we begin to walk on the narrow path of freedom. So I hope that this gives you something to think about and chew on. And I hope that you too will make your way on the narrow path of freedom.